Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to our Wednesday morning class. And I'm echoing, coming to you from HeartLight Spiritual Center here in Charlotte. For you that are out of town, out of state, we want to welcome you that are also joining us online and you that will join us later. Thank you so much for joining us in the word that is coming forth at this time is certainly doing the three things that I say teaching should do, and I'll remind you of that again. One, anybody name one of them? What's the three things setting in a teaching is supposed to do? There's three things that you're looking for.
Verification, contemplation,
Okay.
and new information.
Okay. First thing we're looking for is validation. Number one, validation for what you're already hearing in yourself. You that are already doing the contemplation, you that are doing meditation, you that are doing any spiritual research at all, whether it's on the computer or some documentaries or whatever. But if you're putting yourself in that position, you're being fed a lot of information and knowledge that's out there. So some of that you're already hearing from yourself. And just stop and think about an experience in which you hear somebody say something or a book reads something and you go, that's it. That's what I've been trying to form in my mind. I've been feeling that, but I just didn't quite know how to say it. We've all experienced that. And that is what we call validation of what we're already hearing that is emerging out of our innate intelligence. Everybody got that? I want to make sure you got that. Yeah. That everybody is born with something called universal mind. Religion term for it is Holy Spirit. We have taken the license to change holy from H-O-L-Y to W-H-O-L-L-Y as in wholeness, right? I've always been leery of the H-O-L-Y because it really means separate. To be holy means to be set aside. It's the same word for, another word for that is what we used to call sanctification, which is the setting apart from the world. That was the people that became extreme moralists. Everything is wrong, everything is a sin in the world and whatever. A lot of people, have done that. But people who are open and praying and searching are really hearing things on such a subtle level that the brain doesn't quite get it. It's there. You know something's trying to come through, but you're just not getting it all the way down to a chemical level. Because for you to get something in your human brain, it's got to be translated chemically. Because of what the brain is. It's chemical and electrical. If you'd see a brain, you just see it lighting up because of all of the electrical circuits that's going on into 100 billion cells or whatever it is that makes up the brain. There is constant electrical messages going back and forth with each other that produces a pattern or a thought. That's what a thought is. It is a pattern of electrical, chemical firing in the brain cells that fire into what's called a synapses. A synapses. A synapses is the pattern of an electrical charge, and when that charge happens and you get a thought, a lot of times the only thing that will match that thought is that thought that you had in the past when you had that thought. You understand? Because you're constantly downloading information, right? All your life. Lives and life. You're downloading knowledge and information. You're validating it through your belief systems, and it is suppressed into the unconscious part of yourself. And when something happens out here, it will look for itself in the past to find a matching frequency. And then you will have what's called a brain cell firing. Okay? Everybody got that? So most of what we think, we've already thought. That's the bottom line. Most of what we think, We read it in a book, we heard somebody else say it, and therefore we validate it into our belief system based upon somebody else. But at the same time, if you're alert and awake to your own inner process, you'll realize that there is information trying to come up out of your spirit. Are you with me? How many of you have ever had an experience with a thought you'd have never thought? You know, like, wow, that was interesting. That was a thought I would have never thought of that. But this thought emerges somewhere out of the depths of your spirit and is made through the process of becoming chemical, electrical, enough that you get it as a thought in your brain. And that's called what? An epiphany. That's what exactly an epiphany is. But most of the thoughts that we think have already been thought. And that was a research study at Stanford University back years ago that they came up with some number, 60,000 thoughts a day, I don't know. And out of the 60,000 thoughts a day, 85% of them was self-referral. In other words, about me, what am I going to do? I should have done this. I didn't do that. It's all about self-referral. So out of the 60,000, 85% of them is self-referral thoughts. Okay? Now get this. 90% of that 85% of negative thinking is negative.
Wow. Right.
Isn't that quite a study? 60,000 thoughts, 85 are self-referral, 90% of self-referral thoughts was negative. I should be thinner. I should be taller. I should be this. I'm not pretty enough. Well, I goofed up on that. If I'd only done it this way. This is the chatter that goes on constantly in the 3D world of reactionism. Then you come to classes like this, and you get some thoughts that might in some way resonate with you before you mentally understand it. Has that happened to you?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Without question.
That means somewhere in the gut, in the spirit, in the core of you, there is a quickening. Like, yeah, I didn't quite get that with my head. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I'm telling you, I felt a resonance with that information. That means that's information that you're hearing outside that's trying to birth itself inside. Are you with me?
Yes.
If you're not, tell me. I'll explain it to you the best I can. So, the first thing of the three things is validation of information that is coming from your own intelligence, which is innate within you. Okay? The second thing that teaching should do is correction of old validated beliefs that are not in alignment with divine consciousness. So we need correction. Course in Miracles was really good for that. As far as I'm concerned, the power and the strength of Course in Miracles is in its power to correct old thinking of ego and bring it into the system of the Holy Spirit's thought system. That's important. So you see why I have integrated all these different things rather than got stuck with one and saying we're going to be all Course in Miracles now, or we're going to be all Kabbalah, or we're going to be all quantum or whatever. There's a weaving going on here of the many threads of truths that are coming together here at HeartLight. Okay? So, validation of new things that are trying to come up in you that have not yet been made fully conscious to you. Secondly, correction of old knowledge and information that has been validated that is not in alignment with your... The third thing is where I think the contemplation comes in. And that is hearing new things that you just don't know, you didn't quite get a witness, but it's interesting. It kind of piqued your interest. Enough that maybe you're jotting it down here in the class or re-listening to it and you go, I think I would like to focus on that a little more for myself. You might want to contemplate it, you might want to meditate on on it, and you may want to do some research on it, which I encourage you. You know, I know some of us are not the most literate computer people, but I think we know enough to know how to type in something. All you do is just get on your Google and type in the word or a subject, and it'll come up for you to study. I mean, how lazy is that? It used to be that easy to come up with information and knowledge, but to realize you've got a global brain right at your fingertips that you can look up about anything in the world you want to. But again, you have to be discerning of that too. As we know, technology is still in its infinite stage as far as I'm concerned. It is not matured to a level that it can be totally trusted. Yes, it can be used for the good or the not so good, as we know right now in this time of what? Polarity. Let me ask you, why is there such polarity? I'm kind of backing up with some questions that we have covered in the class. Why is there so much polarity between I'm not you and you're not me? Whether it's Democrats, Republicans, vax, anti-vax. Why?
First of all, there is, oh gosh, I'm having a brain fart. Chaos before correction.
Transformation.
Okay.
We're also moving from 3D to 5D.
Yeah.
It's the emotional charge of 4D.
It is the emotional charge of 4D. He knows it. He knows it. He lives with it.
The charge.
It is the emotional charge of 4D. So let me read you a little something. Let's see how it goes. And I'm reading from 5D Frequency by Barbara Henn-Clow. The emotional energy of the fourth dimensional messages is extremely powerful. You got to admit, it's powerful today, the way people dislike each other. I mean, it can't get more extreme than you don't agree with me. Here's a gun, I'm going to shoot you. Or I'm going to run you over with a car, or all the extreme things that we're seeing today. I mean, people used to just talk about it. They didn't always do all these things. Now they do it without thinking. Because the atmosphere of fourth dimension is so charged electrically with emotion that people are getting knocked out consciously by emotion. And you all have probably experienced that. I know I have. I have done and said things that I was not conscious that I said until I came back to consciousness that I wish I could take back and think again. We've all done that. And we go, why did I say that? Because you were knocked out consciously and you went into the reactive part of yourself, where that incident, situation, or word held a charge of something that happened 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or maybe in the womb you don't even remember, but somehow there was a frequency match with all of this energy that has been damming itself up, that's not being balanced and taken care of, that is now emotionally charged by 4D to the point that it is immersing out into the body politic. It's just like you think you can eat this or drink that or do what you want to because you see no evidence of it harming you. See, that's the subtle of ego. Well, it's not bothering me. I don't have that trouble. Then at some point you keep putting in something that's toxic into your system, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, or whatever. But at some point, it cannot remain within you. And it makes its journey to the outside of you in the form of a rash, breakouts, and all of the things that we deal with. Herpes, in the lips, mouth, and stuff like that. Probably most people deal with that because of the 60s, I guess. But there are things in our body. But there are things in our body that just lays dormant. until there's a high enough charge for it to happen. Like if you're going through a grieving, or you're going through having to take care of a parent or something like that, and you're under tremendous stress, that will bring all those things out that's been laying there for a long time. Even chickenpox type vaccinations and things like that can end up as shingles in your 60s and 70s, and it's a horrible thing. But yeah, all this stuff just lies there until it finds a resonance to itself. So the emotional energy of fourth dimension message is extremely powerful. This is the primary reason we must learn how to clear and keep clearing our emotional body. Thank you, Dorothy. That was a total confirmation to what she just told us, that when we come, we need to do some clearing of our energy bodies. So we'll make sure that we have some crystal tuners or something always available for everything before we start it. If we have no process to deal with these messages, which in 4D end up collecting and becoming archetypes of demons and angels. That's really what we're meeting in this time.
Yeah, could you read that again?
Mm-hmm. If we have no process, and I underline that, because being in these teachings and doing what we're doing here is the process. Okay? You've stepped up and committed to a process. If you don't have one to deal with these messages, which in 4D end up collecting and becoming archetypes of demons and angels, if you will, then we are consciously stuck in this dysfunctional energy.
I don't quite understand that.
It's just saying if you don't handle things that are emotionally charged, that you suppressed into the depths of your unconscious energy bodies, that emotionally it will charge it in a way in which it will become polarized and intensified.
Where do the angels and demons come in?
Thoughts.
Okay,
Angels mean thoughts.
okay.
Look up the word angel. It's a Greek word that means thought. So when your spirit comes through and says, don't walk on this side of the street, go walk on the other side, that was your guardian angel. It was a thought that moved you from one side to the other side. Demons are your thoughts lower of the ego. They are the carnal thoughts, your lower base thoughts, based upon me, survival of me, do whatever it takes for me, whatever I got to do for me. That is the me-centered
That's good, okay.
part of ourselves. And we have them all day long. Remember the little angel on this shoulder and the demon on this shoulder? We have that. So we are doing our best to be a part of a process. Listen to this. I got to give you this. To love and befriend both demons and angels without letting the demons run the show is the trick. See, you can't stop these thoughts, but you can stop them from being in control. Realize that the demons are merely representations of the dark, what's been disconnected from the light. The yin disconnect from the yang. Now when yin and yang work together, they work together beautifully. Just as the male and female work beautifully to give you that socket of electricity there, one for the male and the female working together. But all of a sudden, if they got polarized and said, I'm not you, you're not me, how dare you, they would not produce the electricity because they're not working together. They've been polarized. And this is what's happening in 4D. You know, we're all old enough to remember Republican and Democrat worked a lot better than it is now. You know, there was differences, but people worked together for the country, for the best of the country. Not now. It's so polarized and charged that it's ridiculous. So messages from higher dimensions are the source of human creativity. That's a good statement. Messages from higher dimensions are a source of human creativity, which 4D intelligence split into dark and light possibilities. So again, light and dark should be working together. Male and female working together. Yin and Yang working together. But the charge of fourth dimension pulls them apart, and they don't work with each other because they see themselves totally separate from each other, and therefore they're intimidated by each other. And that's really what's called the inner battle of the soul. And I think everybody's going through it, whether they admit it or not. I think there is a battle raging inside of all of us concerning what's going on in the world and how we perceive it and how we see it happening and whatever. Many humans choose to ignore these juicy impulses since acting on them might change their lives. So true. I have said that with some energetics for 20 years since I started this, that how many people do not want to be healed because of the change in their life that it would cause. People have adapted to their third dimensional pain. They've learned to live with their pain bodies. All they want is some church or spiritual group to go to once in a while and get some hope that it'll change. But they don't want the change. They just want to go and hear about the hope of the change. Really, that's what churches are. They're places where people come and hear things that gives them hope. And even we who are sitting here, each one of you are settled into a certain life's routine. Things that you like, you don't like, when you like them, when you don't like them, why you like them, all that kind of thing. You have built really your own unique world that you live in. There's the world that you live in. Okay, each one of us has a personal place in that. And the thing is evolution, which used the blessing of to adapt us to survival, is now betraying us because we're adapting to our own issues that are to be rebalanced, recoded, and retuned to the next dimension we're going to, and mainly because the brain is screaming out at us, I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that's going to be like. I don't know how that's going to affect my marriage, how that's going to check my relationship with my family. I don't know how that will make me be as a human being. All these fears come up of the unknown. Of the unknown. And that's why I've done my best to try to give you something once in a while to get you to let go of control. You know, the tongues thing was for mainly that purpose of just trying to get you to leave your comfort zone of where you feel that, because when you do things that you would feel stupid doing, it's because you've reached the boundary that you've set for yourself for what is normal to you. I think it's important to step across and do things that, as Paul says, I've been made a fool for Christ. I tell you, when I got into this, I was willing to do anything, and I did everything. I did stuff you wouldn't believe. I mean, I didn't care what it took. I was determined that I was going to find this thing called God somehow, and I did everything they said. Some of the stuff you wouldn't believe what they have you do. Some crazy stuff. But my heart was right, and I was just young and vulnerable, and I wanted to do whatever it took. I wanted to be baptized right. I wanted to do crazy things. I won't even tell you some of them. You wouldn't understand them. I don't even understand them.
Play with snakes?
Didn't go there. I have had them bring them outside and ask me to bring them in when I was in Alabama. No. Yeah, do that. You know, they get that in the Bible, where it says you shall pick up serpents and they shall not harm thee, and drink poison. But that was an Aramaic idiom. 40% of everything that was said is an idiom.
Right.
What's an idiom?
That which an idiot believes.
It's an example.
Somebody give me an example of an idiom.
The sun is, the sun that we're revolving around, the sun is revolving around us. Or we're revolving around the sun's more like it. Yeah.
No, that's,
That's just a more.
yeah. An idiom would be, it's raining cats and dogs.
Oh,
There you
okay,
go.
gotcha.
We say stuff all the time that somebody who come from another country, learned English, would not know what we're talking about.
There you go.
Yeah. Just think, how would you, what does that mean? It's raining cats and dogs. If you take that literally. But you understand it because it's a cultural idiom. And so this serpent meant anyone who tries to poison you with gossip shall not harm you in any way.
Oh my goodness.
That's what it means. Anyone that poisons your character with gossip and untruth shall not harm you in any way.
That's a good one.
And yet they want to go whip around rattlesnakes. Scary, isn't it? Okay. So fourth dimension is about what I'm trying to get to you. Fourth dimension is going to be about a intense charge of everything that is in 3D that has not been balanced and has not and is not being tuned to a higher fifth dimensional frequency. So we call these things within us that are toxic, we call that as those are our pathologies. And America, as well as other countries, but America is dealing with its pathologies. Racism, prejudice, you name it. Being
So could you
Semitic.
sorry. Could you kind of say that 4D is the correction phase between 3 and 5?
Yes,
Okay.
totally is. Remember, I've used the children of Israel. The wilderness was the 4D for correction to make them candidates to go into 5D without any of their 3D karma. You don't go into 5D to work out karma. Forget it. There is no karma in 5D. There's no need for karma in 5D. Karma was for definitely 1, 2, 3D. And that's why the work is so important right now, to really commit yourself to do as much of this work as you can to make sure that you're at a frequency to stabilize the new energy. And when I say energy, I mean the principles that come with that energy. Divine law, they call it. The divine principles that go with 5D will become more available to you if you learn to let go of the imprints and toxicity of 3D karma.
What are the principles for 5D?
Love,
Okay, that's just,
peace, passes understanding. All the things that we've talked about in 3D that we made spiritual. Think about it. We went to New Thought, Metaphysics. We went to all these churches and groups that we went to because they told us about 5D stuff. Love unconditionally with no judgment. That's 5D. See, everybody thinks something new that they don't know. You've been tapping into 5D all along, once in a while. Now, going to a ministry that teaches that is not enough until it becomes manifested as a part of your nature. So you can't learn unconditional love. You just can't learn it. I'm telling you. Some of us have been trying to learn this stuff for decades. to walk on all this metaphysical teachings, Fillmore's teachings. They're wonderful teachings, but we don't live there. We don't live in that state of constantly not judging people and unconditionally loving them, no matter who they are or what they say. But we have tapped into it. But in 5D, it becomes stabilized. What is stabilized in 3D? Fear. Do you really have to do much to bring up fear? Trust me, you don't. Fear has controlled the 3D experience all along. It's been built upon fear. Then teaching started coming along, such as Course in Miracles and others, that started teaching that there is an option. Choose again. And that is to choose fear, from fear, love. That one of those two fundamentals is supporting your system of thinking, how you think in the world. So all the toxicity that is flowing out of 3D is finding a tremendous electrical charge in 4D. Mainly because one of the things about 3D that we've learned to do is denial. And this is what has happened to me in a lot of new thought thinking to some degree. I think that a lot of us that has been in this for a while have done our best to learn how to walk in the consciousness of love and no judgment and all of that. But it's not our norm. I can't tell you that loving someone unconditionally is my norm. I would have to go there and find the construct of it that I've downloaded in my memory and try to do my best to do that. But I don't want to do that. I want it to do me. Because I will fail if I try to be the one to love unconditionally all the time. That will not work. Because I know I'm going to revert back to my third dimension principles that govern 3D.
So the practice has to become part of the process.
That's right. That's right. So, so these messages coming from higher dimensions have to get through 4D. And in 4D, there is that separation between what I think from outside myself to what I think from inside myself. And that's the two kind of thoughts you have in you. A lot of you have a lot of spiritual thoughts of spirit that has made it into your consciousness. But they're along with all the other thoughts that you've downloaded from outside of yourself and validated from, say, religion, culture, family, race, whatever else. You got those thoughts. Now, the Bible calls that the growing together of the wheat and the tares. The wheat and the tares. And it says they will grow together to a certain extent, and then they shall be gathered together. And the wheat shall be brought into the barn and be burned up. Burned up with what? Fire. What is fire? Violent flame. That's why one of the things the violent flame is so important to invoke into your life is the burning out of the third dimensional dense dross that is no longer serving you, but it will not burn away the gold, which it'll make it more pure. Fire does two things. It burns out the dross, and it makes the gold more pure. And gold is deity in Scripture. That's why in the tabernacle everything was overlaid in gold and wood. Wood is humanity, gold is divinity. And it was a type of that which would come and bring God and man together 2,000 years ago in the teacher, Yeshua. That was all, thousands of years before he ever showed up, was laid as a pattern through the Old Testament tabernacle. all feelings are made up of emotional charge. Again, what this is talking about is any feelings that we have become overly emotionally charged. And I think that's what that's saying is things are more intense and extreme. There's nothing wrong if you're experiencing such things as some really low lows. I mean, if you're really down and discouraged, anxious, depressed, you're probably really down, anxious, and depressed. Almost knocks you out. Maybe you don't want to talk to anybody that day. Maybe you want to take the phone off the hook. Maybe you just want to shut yourself in. Something like that. It can do that to you. This is so charged. And boy, when that something happens that lifts you out of that, it takes you to the high mountain of an emotion that's almost enough that it is almost euphoria. And that's when it becomes a drug. Your brain makes drugs. And it can make a drug that can make you feel that you are somewhere you are not. Just as real drugs do. That's why people take drugs. Because it takes them somewhere they think they are not, into another place in their consciousness and mind. So what's the answer? The answer always comes back to Buddha. You know, he's got his place in here too. And that's the simple teaching of the middle way. That's the great thing that Buddha learned. Because he was extreme when he started. When he left as the prince of a kingdom of everything and went out to search for why there's suffering in the world, he was totally 100%. He spent all his time sitting under the boa tree, meditating. He didn't clean himself. He didn't hardly ate anything. He didn't do anything. He just stayed constantly in that place of trying to meditate. And he became so extreme and unbalanced with it that he finally swung over to another place that there's nothing to it. This is not working for me, da-da-da. And then he came up with enlightenment for him. Enlightenment was the middle way. The middle way. And that's when, and a lot of his followers left him because they wanted him to stay in that extremity that they first had with him. That was their connection. And as he began to find balance in himself, which brought enlightenment, that I think we all have to find the middle way. I really am working on myself not to be so extreme in my political views. I'm working on it. I don't want to be. There's people that feel just as strong about what they believe as I do about what I believe. And I have to validate that they have, if I want the right, then they have to have the right. It's just when we cross the line that we are not safe with each other that concerns me, to the point that it has been taken. So what has happened in 3D is a lot of energy has been dammed up in us, so to speak. It has been growing. Everything from, say, past lives that was not balanced, that was shot over to the next lifetime for balancing, and we didn't do it. And the thing is we could be so much further along, but we've chosen not to. We're where we are because of the power of choice. And because of the fact that we have such free will on this planet. When you're on these dimensions, on Earth, every one of them is governed by free will. And you only grow at the level that you are willing to do so. And people have just not had that total willingness and commitment to really go through whatever the process is that would bring them to the next level. and to activate these other dimensions that are opening up to us at this time. So the fact that 4D is so emotionally charged that it's charging all that unfinished business of 3D into itself. But it's doing it for the opportunity, which is a good word a while ago, for the opportunity of balancing and healing all of our 3D karmic imprints. And this is why you've got to understand that we're going to go through a lot of things that are going to be, I don't know what the word is, mysterious to us. Like, I never thought I'd go through that. I never thought I would see this happen. There's some things in there that you would not have anticipated in showing up in your life because, how do I say it? Because enough of us now has entered together to create a collective field of consciousness that we are able to take in some of the unfinished karma of the that's undone in the collective unconsciousness. And that's where you become empathic. Empathic means that you take in what is built up in the collective unconsciousness to slow it down, to slow it down and take power out of it. So that's why I keep telling you here that all of you have a ministry. May not be to stand up here behind this rostrum or to teach public or whatever, but every one of you have this ministry of taking in what would most likely self-destruct us and to bring it in and, what's the word I want? Bringing in and diminish it into us. And that's why I tried to do this intercessory prayer thing, because that's what intercessory prayer is. It means taking the illness into yourself and raising it to a higher vibration and bringing it into the violet flame and till everything in it that is not of divine order is burned away and cleansed.
Can you do that on a collective basis, or is that on an individual basis?
You can do it on collective, uncollective, but whatever, yeah, whatever level it is. So I've got this back challenge right now. So all I'm claiming is that I'm going to do this for everything in the collective consciousness that has endured this kind of pain that I'm going through, so that through my experience, I will diminish the pain of those who have a frequency matched to my pain that I'm going through. So if you go through cancer, maybe you're going to take that cancer in and you're going to come out of it fine, because you're going to dismiss or diminish the power of cancer, of that type of cancer.
We've already done that.
Let me give you a great scripture for that in Hebrews 5, maybe, I don't know. It says, "For God has taken from among mankind, people, for things pertaining to God. For how can the ignorant know the way unless we ourselves are compassed with such infirmity?" I love that one. I'm going to give you that to you again. God takes a people out of a people. That's who you are. You are a people out of a people. You are those that are stepped up and say, "Here I am, God. I'm your availability for you to do this transaction into the next dimension," whether you want to look at it from Pisces to Aquarian to third dimension to fifth dimension, I don't know. You can call it whatever you want to, but you all are here to be a part of that transition. You are a people. You are a people. So God took out a people for his purpose. And the purpose was to release, and you're going to understand the Bible, the word ignorance is kind of an insulting term, but it really isn't. It just means those who are enlightened on something. It doesn't mean they're stupid or ignorant. It means that they are unenlightened, are not conscious. So how can those who are unconscious know the way, but through We who are compassed with such infirmity as they are. Now, I have never had an issue with alcohol. I can take it, I can leave it, I do very little of it. But I've had tremendous friends who are alcoholics, and what they go through is horrible. But I did not understand it. My thing with them was a slap on the wrist, stop it. Don't you know you're hurting your body doing that? Why would you do that? That didn't help them at all, because we were about like this. We weren't meeting on a frequency, you see. But if I took them to someone who had that same issue, who has been through that infirmity, and that infirmity is now compassion, and that frequency of compassion can reach the frequency of the condition. So it's what would really be good if we would all take down some of the major issues of our life that we can remember. Like having lung cancer and surviving it fine with no issues. Maybe I did that for all lung cancer everywhere. Maybe. Who knows? Why me? I never smoked. That'd be the last thing I would think I would have. And I've used my lungs a lot, so I got to have some strong lungs. As much as I've spoken and sang and whatever else like that. So I choose to let the experiences of my life be for the better of the collective. Some things I can't talk to you about because I've not been there. I've not walked in your moccasins, so to speak. But some of you can match up because you've been there and you've done that. So this is why there's a need for a people, we'll call it a people, to step up and be willing to do this kind of work. Let me give you a little bit more here. Imagine damming up the ocean in mid-wave. The energy buildup would be formable and would begin to break through any type of dam we could possibly create. Now this is what's happened. This thing is built and built and built and built until it cannot be held within the third dimensional human domain. So it's erupting in 4D. So this is why the lower half of 4D is going to be a little different than the higher of 4D. But the lower is what we're going through right now, and that is dealing with these issues that was not dealt with in 3D. And that's why you don't go from 3D to 5D or Egypt to Canaan. See, that's what people want to do. They want to go from here to there. They just don't want to deal with that in-between place of process. So we need to really get our mindset wrapped around this energy. So if we dam up our emotions, then too, they become formable. For those who are afraid of their anger or conditioned for other reasons not to feel their anger, where does that energy go? See, this has been my concern about all this mental positive thinking thing. Because it's easy for us to do an affirmation or to do something and just do a mental thing. And suppress it. Or, and here's a really good one, is we think we've taken care of it. I took care of that. I was abused as a kid, and I took care of that 30 years ago. I went to the greatest workshop and teacher, and I got rid of all that stuff mentally. But you're not seeing a lot of fruition from releasing that, because even though you changed the mental construct of it, you did not change the imprint that it is made in the lower aspects of the soul, where it gathers itself. Get this, it gathers itself to a point that it becomes a field. So all your anger goes toward anger, all your fear goes to the tribe of fear, each one's a tribe, Fear's got a little tribe. Maybe you're afraid of heights, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're afraid of snakes, but you're not. Maybe you're afraid of this. But there's a whole tribe of fear that gathers itself into itself. And then you've got another tribe in you of something else that's built upon some negative emotion or whatever. Okay? Then, when it becomes a field, it becomes conscious of itself and becomes the pain body. You've all heard the pain body teaching. That's what a pain body is. It is a field of dammed up emotional patterns that have not been balanced and integrated into the wholeness of consciousness that has built up and built up and built up until it begins to emerge outside as conditions. This is why I'm doing my best to look at people who do horrible things, like shoot innocent people or run their car over people or they don't agree with, or some of those things, and realize that most likely, I don't think those people are conscious always what they're doing. I think they are part of coming up out of the collective unconsciousness, and that person may be due to drugs, alcohol, religion, something like that, has opened themselves up for this to show up through them. I don't know. I'm just putting out something to contemplate. I'm not telling you the gospel here, but I'm just saying that I do not think sometimes people could do what they could do if they were conscious. I think they have been rendered totally unconscious. Now, I'm got to close here in a minute. This dammed up energy is a part of what creates the murkiness of 4D. So things are kind of murky, aren't they? You know. Which then makes it more difficult for us to access higher dimensional perspectives and higher dimensional wisdom. In turn, this keeps us stuck in 3D expression. So a lot of people are going to stay in 3D a lot longer than other people are. It's where you are in the spectrum of the work that's going to make a difference to what you are a candidate or an initiative to move into. On the other hand, if instead of damming up the energy, we let it explode in ways, and if we don't, we will let it explode in ways that are harmful to others. That's what I'm trying to say. This has the same effect in 4D as repressing it does. Our rage and violence circulate in the dimensions, feeding those archetypes who take glee in smiting, raping, pillaging, and creates thicker barriers in the canopy of 4D. Wow. So much. So much.
That's what's been going on.
This has been going on for at least 10 to 12,000 years of entering into the state of Homo erectus, or adolescent human. And that was marked by dominion over the earth, which is how the Bible starts out. And man shall have dominion over all the earth. And we know that with that is men over women. However mankind, men, has treated Mother Earth, they've treated their women. When you see men who love their companion and are good to them and equal with them and all of that, you'll find a person that is somehow attached to nature. Want to get out in the garden. Yeah, to do something like that. That makes a unique man. But if a man sees everything and doesn't reverence it and all goes out and chops the trees down and kills the animal for no reason at all and all that kind of thing, that is usually the man that is not good to the woman. that is more abusive.
I think that's very true.
Contemplate, 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 contemplate. So dominion over earth, men over women, and reductionism. And that's why it said that whatever man calls something, that's what it was. I've often thought, who says that that particular animal is a cow? If somebody would have told me it was a dog, it'd have been just as natural to me that that animal is a dog and not a cow. But we have used names to label things and keep them separate from each other. You see that in medicine, in all specializations of the medical field, reductionism. Everybody has their specialty, their box. Because when I go to doctors, I ask a lot of questions that's outside the box. They know I know a little bit of something, and they get very uncomfortable with me. Because if I get them out of their training, their textbook training, they don't know how to answer. The majority of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Because of reductionism. So that's what has to be healed in fourth dimension. Dominion over earth, men over women, and also the male and female of ourselves. Has to become more integrated so that we become more androgynous beings. Androgyny has nothing to do with being homosexual or heterosexual. Nothing at all. So don't do that one. Because the ego will try to get, oh, he's talking about I need to be gay. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the principles of your male and female need to quit being polarized and come together and work together for the higher good. Because when they work together, they bring forth beautiful children. When they work together, they bring forth beautiful children. Children of the kingdom of God, children of love, peace, joy, and all of the wonderful attributes that we call God or spirit in some way. So next week we'll start. I want to get to, I'm going to review a little of 1D, but we're going to go to 2D and work ourselves up the ladder a little bit here in consciousness. I got just a few minutes. If there's any statements, questions, or anything, I'm glad to do that for you. Always take your silence as a compliment that you got everything.
Yeah. No, I was gonna
Gave us a lot today.
say, yes, you
It's just like-
did.
It just takes so much.
Yeah, you did.
Well, you can, and
Yeah, need to contemplate it a little bit.
I would really re-listen to these if you have time at all. If you're a person that has the time, re-listen to the class sometime. Just take an hour of your time. Let that be your spiritual time, your meditation time, your contemplation time. I mean, at least we should be able to give a little amount of our time every day to our spiritual self to
I
do.
have a question.
Okay.
When you were talking about how we built our own unique world, and that when we reach the boundaries of that world, because we feel like we do something that's different, we're going to be foolish. Is that what a lot of people, and I'm saying because I've talked to quite a few people, some people are feeling like they're in a box, like they're just confined.
Yeah.
And they want to burst out, but they don't know where to burst or how to burst. Do you go back to contemplation for that? Or do you go back to what is it that I really want to do that I'm not doing?
Well, if I understand right, and maybe I didn't, but to understand if people are feeling that box thing, that's that stage of the caterpillar, the butterfly feeling the cocoon,
I thought, yes.
the restriction. So that means that person at some level has given permission for growth
That makes sense.
and spirituality. At some level, they may not even consciously know it, but at some level they've said, there's more, there's a better way. And immediately the universe opens up. Like the Course says, give me a little willingness and I'll do the rest. So that would be that person, because they would have to be aware they're in the box, feeling that. Then what I believe is at that time that intent goes out for growth, they begin to send out the frequency to attract what teaching that they need to validate what they're going through. It could be in the form of a book. Many times it has been a book for me, or it could be tuning into this class or some workshop or something that you're sent to. That's why I say don't just run around to things, people, because it's in the name of spirituality. Be very aligned with what you do and where you invest your mind and your consciousness into. I think it's very, very important to do that. But does that kind of answer
Yes,
your
that's
question a little bit? Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Nothing. All right, I want two people to tell me what's one thing you're taking away from this class.
Wow. Okay.
Me too.
Fourth D is polarity, which is happening now, and we're not gonna get to 5 until we can clear out 4.
Very good. I like that. Very good.
I enjoyed learning more about Buddha, about how he came to that middle ground. I know very little about Buddha, and that was interesting, how he had to go to the two extremes to come to the middle. So that was good.
Yeah, there's a wonderful documentary on the life of Buddha. I never know which one it is, if it's Prime or Netflix, but I really encourage people to watch it. It is so well done. I'll try to find it for you and let you know if you can't find it. I think it's just called Buddha. Yeah. But I really enjoyed it. It was excellent, just excellent.
The role of empathy, in 4D, that's really,
Yeah, that's
I'm going to
Taking in,
contemplate
yeah,
about that
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. I read in a book recently, it really spoke to me, but it was about a woman who was diagnosed with diabetes, which is something I'm dealing with. Diabetes, and everything they did didn't work for her whatsoever. You know, she couldn't control it or whatever. Then she went to somebody more holistically inclined who's discovered she didn't have diabetes, but that the pancreas was mutating to a higher frequency and dimension, giving off symptoms of diabetes. Now, I have to be careful with that because I'm not saying all your situations are that, but that's where you need spiritual healer, right? Spiritual healing. People who can diagnose you energetically and spiritually are very important to make a contact with, because they're going to find out a lot of stuff that these doctors are giving you and telling you is probably not what's going on in every case, that your body is in the process of transmuting itself to become a new container. For how can, and I close with this, how can you pour new wine into old wine sacks? How is this fifth dimension, and beyond going to fit into your life until you become a new container for it?
very good.
And that's why this has to be brought to the cellular level. It's not an inside job anymore. It's not just going within, just going within, just going within. It is that is going within, beginning to immerse into the birth, all the way down to the cellular level. Wow, what a good group today. Thank you so much for coming. It's good to always have Connie. Yeah. You'll be hearing from Connie soon in that way. Good to see Jackie back there.
Jackie snuck in. There you are.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming today, and I will be with you Sunday. I don't know if I made that clear, but I'll be here Sunday.
Be here Sunday, and then the next
Yeah.
2 Sundays, you take it.
Next Sunday, Connie.